chapter 15, Africa Agonistes. Um, we could start off with question one, defining what Africa Agonistes is. And I would say, from my definition after reading the chapter, I think it was, I think it means, Africa just as a nation and its people in a state of struggle. And I say that because in this chapter, um, Amos talks about a lot of the results of not joining forces when it comes to African Americans and Africans on the continent. And he says that in the first section, when he's talking about the dangerous economic straits of contemporary Africa, when you rely on the structure of of Europeans or anything that is non-African, you become very vulnerable because that is it's not you. It's not something that would benefit, the quality of life for our people. In terms of government making trades, he mentions that, instead of a vertical trade where we are vertically, trading upwards to other continents that are outside of Africa, it should be a lateral where it's internal. We're trading within African countries.
No, I think you give a good definition because that is like African having its struggles as well as conflicts with itself in terms of how it does business. And one thing that kind of stuck out for me is when it talks about the self-inflicted wounds
Hmm.
of the African at home and abroad. And what I had wrote a note to myself was with a lot of this, it has to do with mismanagement as well as some of these issues. The country has themselves to blame for them because instead of there's continue to have the United States and the European nations dictate the business for them instead of the Africans doing business with other African nations. It seemed like there's a lot of problems with the organization as well as the mindset because uh, with not being organized and being able to kind of look at utilizing their own resources, it seemed like you just going through this vicious cycle where the Americans and the Europeans are exploding the African nations. And also another thing I found kind of interesting is with the loans, the amount of the money that the African countries owe to the bank. It doesn't seem like with some of the other European nations, the United States or the bank might forgive the other nations, but when
Hmm.
it comes to African nations, they don't do debt forgiveness. So that's kind of another way that the African countries are having a lot of difficulties having any economic stability.
Right. And to go and add on what to you're saying, this reminds me of what Halp had mentioned probably a while ago, where it's everybody's fault in general, but it's nobody's fault specifically. Obviously, we have our external struggles. When white supremacy, colonization, imperialism, but then again, as you had mentioned, Ethel, we can't forget about what happened internally. Misguided leadership and the lack of vision, not having the right people in the right seats to represent African people in general. And these both of these factors are doing a great damage because there is obviously no organization, and still you have those African leaders, a lot of them that are taking that mindset of, wanting to benefit and gain for themselves, but not distribute that within their own country.
And that's the number one problem as far as I'm concerned. Like the problems that's affecting Africa, right now is African problems. It's not like everybody wants to talk about colonization and this and that and whatever. Listen, this is your land. This is your government. Ain't no white man in the positions of power there. You are. As long as they're in a good position, that's all they fucking care about. It's a problem with Africa in the sense that if you don't have people in positions of power that want to control their own land, then what the fuck? You know, there's only so much you can put on the white man.
What should Africa's new cash crop be besides labor? And Amos Wilson talks about it. I forgot in what page, but he says obviously the main source of income that we make here pretty much is labor, you know, working under somebody and just not having any sort of business or any kind of means of productions. But from this second question, what would you guys think the new cash crop would be besides, you know, labor itself or new
Resource.
resources?
Yeah, I was thinking resources, using their own natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything particular, but I was thinking like I know they were talking about manufacturing, maybe some textile because they can make their own clothing. Um,
Yeah.
I have a note with my note saying change the game plan because you know everything in life is like a game, and instead of you playing checkers, you got to play chess. And the way you beat the person at their game is you have to study them. So basically, and if somebody has the upper hand on you, you want to figure out how you want to do better than them. You have to kind of study them, see what they're doing, and then come up with another strategy without them knowing that you're observing them so that you can try to overpower them. Because it's all about the change in your strategy, and you kind of you got to be kind of radical about it too, and as well as a little bit of secretive. You can't let them know that you know what your move is.
You know, one of the things that I don't understand, well, I guess I can't say I don't understand it. I do. But people who have money here in America, like guys who's like multimillionaires and billionaires, the thing that Africa needs more than anything else in the world, because we have the resources,
Mm-hmm.
we need manufacturing and processing plants.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing that if you're a rich person here in America, I would be jumping all over that because if you have, let's say, you have all of these resources, but you don't have all you can do is just export them to other people who can manufacture and process them. But let's say you do the processing.
Mm.
Now you have ways to export where you benefit from the exports exponentially.
Right.
Like, why doesn't Africa produce its own weapons?
Right.
It makes absolutely no fucking sense. And like I said, I've pointed this out many times. It's not like we're dealing with high, like some high concept when it comes to weapons.
Right.
Like the fucking Chinese can reverse engineer anything. Anything. They even reverse engineer hip hop. You got Chinese kids, doing hip hop and breakdancing better than black folks. It's like we don't think as terms of ownership. We think in terms of like the Italians try to do with Bumpy Johnson. We get in where we fit in.
Yeah. I mean, they really don't, and or even half ass it. You know, like
Right.
that's another thing that I thought about too with this chapter is part of the suffering is when you have folks that flaunt, you know, change, and they may post it on, you know, social media, have it on a profile, but then in actuality, there's no work being done at all. There's none. And if so, it's really just for, you know, like you said, how their ego, you know, their business or just that their family sort of say.
Yeah, You're gonna raise your kids up in some socioeconomic and political bubble.
Yeah.
So you get your $1 million and you leave your $1 million to your kids. So you've done the work now. So now all of a sudden you've changed the context that they live in. All you've done is just made the slave plantation a little bit more comfortable for them. And if that's what you consider winning, knock yourself out, dude.
Mm-hmm.
To me that's putting your head in the sand and hiding. Because it's too hard to deal with the way that shit is. Listen, it's fucking hard, man.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard. No matter how you slice it, when you want to have your own shit, it's always going to be harder than when you don't. It's easier to be an employee than it is to be an owner. That just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, that's what the deal is, and that's the reason why this whole bend the knee. I mean, it sounds funny, but it's serious.
Right.
Bending the knee should be a fucking option for you niggas.
Yeah. Like you said, we got to choose sides.
Yeah, what are you gonna do if we're not gonna try to obtain power? Then what the fuck are we fighting for?
Yeah.
Like if I put together a football team and my intention is not to win the Super Bowl, then why did I put together the team as a tax write off? If you're not trying to win, what are you doing?
Mm.
And the conscious community does not want to have that conversation because they live on the struggle.
Mm.
Umar Johnson, Tariq Nasheed, these guys live off the struggle. If there was no struggle, they wouldn't have no career.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a lot of people are getting played.
Besides us, because we as BAIO, we do our best to keep, to be optimistic of the future. Like everything that is laid out from the black agenda, what it is, and how we can go about it. I can say the BAIO has, if not the best outline to having a nation, you know, evolve in Liberia and to have power. Like it,
Mhm.
what better can you go? Because it's very simple.
Yeah.
It's simple to where, shoot, even a kid could understand it if we give them the cliff notes, and use some kind of analogy. But it's like I don't think people outside of the BAIO, I don't think they're really as optimistic for a future in Africa at all. Because to your point, Hollop, right? There's a lot of Han Solos where they're really just about, well, I'll just go about my own means and just, live my life. And
Right.
individually, yeah, you're happy, I guess, you're hanging out, you're doing what you want to do, but it's not forever.
Yeah. To me, it seems like the opposite way to go when you reach this point in your life.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you would figure your selfishness would be when you were younger.
right.
But once you get to be a certain age and you get past 50, then you got to start thinking about the remaining portion of your life and what you want that to be. And I just find it curious that somebody would think that not giving a fuck about the plight of your people collectively and just I'm going to be by myself and just me and my own. That seems a very odd conclusion to come to
Mm-hmm.
personally for me.
Well, a lot of people are just self-centered.
Yeah, don't try to claim like that's an ideology. That's called defeat. That's called bending the knee.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's too hard to do this. When really like what you said underrated, it's really easy. The reason why is we stay positive is because we know the solution. It's not a fucking mystery.
Right.
The solution is easy. The hard part is niggas. That's the hard part. It's that gorilla that's been in a cage for all of its life, and then you open up the cage and tell it, well, now you're free. You don't have to be in here anymore. Go ahead, get out of here, and watch what happens.
No, man, I'm gonna close the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gorilla doesn't have any skills to live on its own because it's been used to being taken care of. They know that gorilla knows that at 4 o'clock, the food is coming.
I would say they're putting it on the side because
Mhm.
Africa is not in the minds of a lot of Black people, or we actively try to pretend and distance ourselves from Africa. So for me, that's the biggest problem. It's like outside of us and maybe a few other orgs, yeah, there are African Americans who are invested in Africa, but they're as individuals. There's no collective organization that says we're going to help build in Africa. It's more of individuals trickling in, sprinkling in. It's like that's good, but in terms of organizing and actual empowerment, that's not good enough. That's not sustainable.
So next time, chapter 16 will be investing in and trading with African nations. This is going to be pretty much a series of just wealth, finances, and money until we get to, I think, about chapter 20, a nation within a nation. I'm really looking forward to that, but I want to get through these chapters just so that we can cover it. But as always, thank you guys for
Say,
popping
you
in.
mind if I
Great
play you a little
conversation.
something real quick? I don't know, the last time you went on an impulse, you embarrassed the shit out of me. Look, this will be easy. I promise. Watch.